Take a second and picture a very specific, unresolved situation where someone deeply wronged you. Hold that person and what they did in your mind. When we experience that kind of hurt, our natural instinct is to seek fairness. We unconsciously start keeping a ledger. The offense becomes a debt, and human nature demands that the ledger be balanced. They took something from you, so they owe you. In the Gospel of Matthew, the Apostle Peter brings this exact problem to Jesus. He wants to know the math of this moral ledger, asking if forgiving a brother 7 times is enough to satisfy the debt. Jesus answers with 70 times 7. He isn't giving Peter a higher limit of 490 instances. He's describing a spirit of forgiveness where you stop tracking the numbers altogether. Forgiving a deep, ongoing hurt feels as impossible as human flight, because it requires us to go against our deepest natural demand for exact retribution. To explain how this works, Jesus tells an economic parable. He describes a servant who owes his king an astronomical sum, 10,000 talents. This diagram shows what that ancient measurement translates to today. A single talent was an immense weight of precious metal, so 10,000 talents scales up to roughly 60 million days of wages. In modern economic terms, this servant is carrying a $10 billion deficit. The servant begs the king for more time to pay, but looking at the timeline, earning this amount would require multiple lifetimes of impossible labor. We often hear the phrase forgive and forget, but that isn't how economics or true forgiveness works. A $10 billion deficit cannot vanish. The debt exists, and the financial loss must be accounted for somewhere. True forgiveness requires a transaction. The king, moved by a gut-level pity, steps in and actively absorbs that crushing financial loss himself. He pays the debt at his own expense to set the servant free. Immediately after having his billions cleared, that exact same servant tracks down a peer who owes him 100 denarii. Compare it to the 10,000 talents, 100 denarii is microscopic. It represents about 3 months' wages, a tiny fraction of a single penny relative to the massive weight of the king's debt. The first servant reacts with sudden violence. He grabs his peer by the throat, physically choking him while demanding exact fairness and immediate payback. When the peer begs for the exact same patience the servant had just received from the king, the servant refuses. He has his peer thrown into a savage first-century debt prison, handed over to tormentors until the 100 denarii is paid. The servant felt entitled to receive infinite, unearned mercy from the king, yet he refused to extend even a fractional amount of that mercy to someone else. This dynamic mirrors how we often handle modern grievances. We demand strict fairness and retribution for those who wrong us, while we ourselves exist only because of the mercy we've been given. When we hold on to a grudge, we place ourselves squarely in the role of the unmerciful servant. The theology behind this parable treats human sin as a literal, unpayable debt owed to a holy God. We are the ones carrying the $10 billion deficit, unable to clear our own ledgers. Jesus brought the logic of this parable into the physical world through the shedding of blood on the cross. The crucifixion operates as the ultimate economic transaction. Instead of demanding fairness and exacting retribution, God chose to absorb our infinite debt at his own agonizing physical expense. He cleared the ledger because of his own patient and merciful character, having nothing to do with whether we deserved the pardon. Applying this to our own lives means understanding what interpersonal forgiveness actually is. It does not mean forgetting the offense, minimizing the pain, or forcing reconciliation with someone who is still unsafe. True, practical forgiveness is a conscious, ongoing choice. You look at the very real debt an offender owes you, and you actively decide to absorb the cost of that hurt yourself, rather than forcing them to pay you back. Think back to that specific, unresolved hurt you pictured at the beginning of this video, the person who wronged you, and the debt they still owe you. The challenge is to do the hard work of paying mercy forward. The call is to forgive that specific person this week. Choosing to cancel someone else's debt is a difficult countercultural act, but for the person who has seen the scale of the king's mercy, demanding a few hundred denarii from a peer starts to look like a very small thing.